Hey guys, Mike B. Rolling here. I had a good question come in today on the channel. A guy was asking how long is too long for a rig to sit. Uh, Pretty simple answer: no such thing. Just depends on how committed you are. If you're looking for, if you're give you kind of the different ranges here. If you're looking for a turnkey truck that you can buy and put right on the road and not have hardly any troubles with, I mean, when I say relatively few problems, we'll just talk about the duration time. So the problems that would be associated with a truck sitting for a short-term duration. If you don't want to have to work on it a lot in the beginning, doing, working some kinks out, I wouldn't have a truck that sat much more than 3 to 6 months. Then you're going to start at 3 to 6 months. You're going to start having, well, yeah, 3 to 6 months. If it hasn't been started and ran at all, you're going to have seals starting to dry out. The longer the truck sits, the drier those seals are going to sit. Number one things you're going to start noticing is wheel seals, because they're exposed to the most weather and climate. They'll dry out the fastest. So wheel seals, if a truck's been sitting for a year, 2 years, whatever, you might have to do a wheel seal or two here or there. Not that big a deal. They're cheap. They're relatively easy to do. I mean, I might even do a video one day and kind of how to do videos. But there's videos on YouTube, and I don't need to waste my time reinventing the wheel. That video is already out there. But wheel seals will be your most common. And if you've been sitting for a long time and it hasn't even started, now you've got bigger issues. You could have some stale fuel in your injectors. You might need to, get lucky. You might be able to get it to start and put fresh fuel in it, clean your fuel filter, put fresh fuel in it, and circulate the old fuel through, not at a nice gentle idle. Get all that old fuel out of the system and get some fresh fuel running to it. You should be okay. But the number one things that's going to mess up on engine and trans that are going to be a little pricier to fix will be your front and rear main seals. Transmission input seal is behind the clutch, and you're pulling the transmission to do that. Rear main seal, same thing. You're pulling the transmission, the clutch, and to get to all that. But it's not really as bad as it sounds. It's going to cost you a little bit in labor, but I look at it like this: the cost of picking up a cheaper truck that's been sitting for a while, it's going to offset by putting that truck to work. And I got an oil leak. I got an oil leak. Started out of nowhere. I'm going to have to put her in the shop. Well, chances are you made it 2 or 3, 4 weeks down the road before it started really getting, okay, now it's noticeable. And then you might go for another week or two, maybe 3. And then, she's starting to leak a little worse. I'm checking oil daily, and then I'm just saying worst case, if you can't really afford it and you're having trouble getting started up, you can run an oil leak for a while as long as it's not leaving puddles everywhere you go. If it's just leaving a little spot on the ground, not that big of an issue. Your front main seal, when that starts leaking, that's going to, over time, that's going to coat the whole front of your motor. It's going to look a lot worse than it really is, but you're going to leave all kinds of little spots on the ground in a virtually a straight line with your axle, because that's where it's all going to run down the engine, down to the oil pan, on the axle, and straight down. So you're going to leave like 6 or 7 little puddles, talking nickel size, quarter size, whatever. Pretty easy repair, but the cost offset of buying a cheaper truck that's been sitting for a little while is well worth the hassle of having to change a few seals. So for me, I'm committed. I look at, is it going to be, do I want to finance a truck that I don't have enough cash to buy? Do I want to finance a truck that's going to be $80,000, or do I want to pay cash for a $30,000 truck? It's a no-brainer to me. I'd rather buy that $30,000 truck, pay cash for it, have zero overhead, put that thing to work, and fix it as it needs fixed. It's a simple solution. I've said it 100 times. Find you a good mechanic shop that's going to treat you right. A local, probably a mom and pop shop, not a dealership, not a big, if you see a ton of marquees on their sign out front, they're too expensive. I guarantee you, they're too expensive. Now, you want to have a good fallback shop. Like I've got 2 fallback shops. I got one that does my trailers. I don't know if anybody around the Indianapolis, Fort Wayne area, they know Stoops Freightliner. They got a trailer shop in near my house here, and I take my trailer to them because they do great work. It's like $130 an hour. But I take it in there and I say, hey, this is what I've noticed, and just give it a good check over while you got it in here. And they take it upon themselves to do things like my little hand crank, the holder on the frame rails that the hand crank slides in, so the square shaft that runs right along your rail there. They saw one of the welds busted and it was kind of dangling. I'm showing it like this, but it's 6 foot long, and it was kind of dangling on one end, and he, clamped it tight and put a weld on there. Just little things like that, and they didn't charge but like $20 to fix that weld. So, it's a good shop. They do really good work. And they treat you right. They get you right in. The trailer's secured, locked up. I don't have to worry about people robbing all my chains and securement equipment off the trailer. It's a good shop. And then my truck shop, the number one problem with my truck shop, I'd have him do everything if it could fit. He's a small time shop. You can get a truck in there, but no trailers. It's a small place. But he does great work, and he's cheaper than a lot of people around. He's not cheap, but he's cheaper than most. Cheaper than your big shops, your big, Kenworths and Peterbilts and all that. He's a little bit cheaper than them, but does great work, and I've never had to take anything back to be reworked. That's a key right there. He doesn't give it back if it ain't right. As far as time sitting, I don't care. Now, if you're talking about reviving a truck that's been sitting for 10 years, don't even put that thing on the road until you at least do all the wheel seals, front and main seals. Your airlines, probably go ahead and do all your brake canisters. Then pancakes are going to be dried out. You're going to be blowing them suckers left and right. If it's been sitting for a lengthy amount of time, go through it. Just start grabbing stuff and bending it. Does it bend or does it break? That needs replaced. If that one broke, then all these others might be bad. Replace them all. Not saying it can't be done. It's just your level of commitment. What are you looking to get into? But as far as sitting, I don't. I take it into consideration with the duration of how long it's sat, on how in depth the very soon repairs could be. Because the longer it's set, the greater that list gets. But for the most part, helps 6 months to a year. Not that big a deal. You might have a few troubles out of the gate, but like I said, it's a wheel seal here. Maybe a rear main seal might be a big one. How you pulled into a good shop, and they literally don't have to drop the tranny. They unbolt it, move it back, pull the clutch off, replace the seal, put it right back, put her back together. It's not that big of a job. But when people hear I got to drop the tranny, they're thinking drop it down out of the truck. You got to pull it so they can get the clutch off, or the pressure plate, pull that off and get access to the seal. But it's really not that big a job. Good mechanic can have it to that point in hour and a half tops, and that's drive shaft, transmission, loose, clutch off, boom, 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 boom. You're talking altogether rear main seal, 4, 5, 6 hour job. So $700, $800 in labor, parts, $30, $40 seal. Well, in today's market maybe it's $70, but it's not terrible. But, coming just out of the gate, if you just put all your money down on a truck, that might sting a little right out of the gate. But I don't really worry about how long a truck's been sitting. It just, like I said, the list gets bigger the longer that duration of time is. But a lot of times that's the best way to get your best deals. Maybe it's a Century or a Columbia or a Volvo or, something that people just really aren't in the market for, going, ooh, a Freightliner. Those trucks take longer to sell, especially when they're older. That's what I look for. What did people not want? What is it that, I could buy a Columbia. Yeah, it's a lot of plastic, but they're good. They're decent trucks. They're throwaway trucks, but they're decent trucks. They hold together. They get the job done. It's a good starter truck. Buy something cheap, get yourself started, get established, build your capital. Now you've got a cheap starter truck that you can move on to another guy. Right? He's looking for a cheap starter truck. Sell it to him cheap, take your capital, whatever money you get out of your truck. Now you've got, say you put $15,000 and bought a cheap starter up Columbia. You run it for a year. That $15,000 that you bought that truck right off the lot, $15,000. You've run it for a year. Now you've got 20, 30, $35,000 sitting back ready to buy your next truck. Sell that $15,000 truck for $10,000, whatever you can get out of it. Take that 15, put it with the 10. Now you got 25. Now you just got 1.5 times better truck. Cash, zero overhead, zero debt. Name of the game, stay out of debt, boys. I'm telling you, pay cash. You get nice. I didn't just start buying Peterbilts and Kenworths right out of the gate. I bought an old cheap International. Then I bought an old cheap Freightliner. Then I bought my first Peterbilt, and I was ruined forevermore on Freightliners and International. I didn't want nothing to do with them. I've had a Peterbilt now. I want PACCAR. But I worked my way into it. I started with nothing, guys. When I started driving a truck, I had $1,500. I was a newlywed, 23 years old as an owner-operator. $1,500 newlywed, 23 years old, signature loan, no money down, bought my first truck. That's how I started. I had nothing. I was living with my brother because I just moved back to Indiana, and I started with nothing and built what I have today. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, unless you want to go up to here in debt, which I cannot stress enough how much you don't want to do that. I've done that before. I've got myself way in debt. Now I've been struggling for years to get out of it, and I'm I'm getting pretty close, but I'm not quite where I want to be yet. But we're getting there. We're getting there. So that's why I'm advising people now, if have the capital up front, if at all possible. If you don't have the capital, you got to do the financing thing. Even if you got to pay the higher interest because you're buying a used, old used trucks, you got to go, you're talking secondary market. Could even be, individuals, Uncle Bob, they may charge you a killer amount of interest. You bite the bullet, you do what you got to do to get started. Your second truck, you're paying cash. Third truck, cash. Fourth truck, cash. You don't need to worry about financing. Take the hit, get started, build from there. But anyway, just do a video on that, and thought that was a good question. Deserved a good video response on that. But hope that answers your questions. And guys, any more questions, keep them coming, man. Post them on the comments, and I'll tell you all I know. Y'all have a good day. Have a good week, rest of your weekend. Catch y'all later.